Hello, everyone. Welcome to a live dev mentoring session. In those sessions, we help students of the iOS Lead Essentials program to solve any problems they're facing in their journey to become complete senior developers. Today, we are helping our student, Joseph. Hello.
Hello, Mike, and Caio and Bogdan.
Hi,
Thank you for
Joseph.
joining us.
Hi.
And also, of course, with us, Mike and Bogdan, instructors in the program.
Hello,
So,
everyone.
Joseph, for how long have you been a software developer?
I've been a developer for 1.5 years, and before that, I've been programming maybe 4 or 5 years, just beside my other job I had before.
Awesome. And you started straight away with iOS, or were you doing any like back end, front end?
No, actually, I started straight away with iOS. So yeah,
Swift.
And Swift, right?
Swift,
Yeah.
yeah, it was exactly at the breaking point from Object-C. So I didn't manage to check out any Object-C code, but I started straightly with Swift. So yeah, so that's what I've
Nice.
been doing. Yeah.
Okay, and in this session, you want us to help you improve your app architecture, right? Around the
Yes.
storage of the data, right? In general.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So can you please explain about this application we'll be looking at and the challenges you have with it?
Yeah, it's actually a gym application. That it's been something I've been doing on my spare time. So instead of having gym notes in my phone, I thought like, okay, maybe I can do a gym application and make it a little bit nicer um, with the data saving and all that stuff. And after I did that, I actually made it. I created it 2 years ago, and I've been, working on it a little bit off and on all the time since then.
Those are the best apps, right? We build them to solve a
Yeah.
problem we have. Like you
Our
build it for
needs.
you, right? First.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
exactly.
That's the only thing I do. I just, if it's something I need, I try to solve it, and exactly that's what I've been trying to do here as well. But it's now, when I've been working on it for a while, I thought like, okay, maybe I can make a release application here and try to release it to other people that can use it and
Is it in the App
yeah,
Store?
maybe it can. Sorry.
Is it in the App Store already?
No, it's not in the App Store.
Okay.
I'm thinking about releasing it in the future if I straighten up all the stuff I need to straight up first. It's some challenging tasks I have in the application, and as I said, I made it 2 years ago when I didn't work as an iOS developer, and my main goal by then was to just complete it as quickly as possible. So I didn't really knew too much about modeling or any solid principle architecture and stuff like that. So, and that's what we're going to see today.
But still, it's very impressive, Joseph. Like it has so many features, the app, and for like a year and a half of professional experience that you say you have is, I don't know,
Actually,
like I
he
found,
started 2 years ago, right? When he
yeah,
was learning. So it's pretty
that's
good.
Yeah,
amazing.
thanks, Mike. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what can we do in the app here? Can you walk us through a normal day-to-day using the app?
Sorry, say again, Caio.
Can you walk us through like how to use the app? Like,
Yeah,
let's say you just opened the app for
yeah,
the
of
first
course.
time. What is the first thing you would
Yeah,
do?
of
Create a
course.
program?
Yeah. It's actually have two sections, and it's create your own program, or you can click on the workouts, and then you have the I'm not populated everything, so it's or actually I'm not. You don't see. I used to have like hard coded dummy data as programs, so it's nothing complete. But if you press on full body, you can, and beginner in the, you can press the top ones, and you see like you're getting into what is this nested data, and this is all the weeks that I've been programming. So I'm actually going to populate the application with my own programs, and you can make your own program as well. And now we are inside the program I made, but it's so if you press day one of the full body, it's not actually any programs in there, but it's just for show today. But
Okay.
it's you're going to have all your exercises in here, and if you press on an exercise here, you're going to have your reps and weight. And here you're going to see your charts. So when you start to populate week after week, then so if you can actually type in some reps and weight. And press save.
So you have a timer as well. Is this rest time?
Yeah, it's a rest timer.
Fantastic.
It's
Okay.
yeah.
So it's very complete.
Yeah,
Everything
seems
you
really
need.
exactly complete.
Yeah, if
Wow.
you press save, then you see that it's going to start to populate underneath. So you can press it 3 times usually. So you have set 1, and you press it one more time, set 2, and then set 3, and then maybe you're done, and then you are going back, and you start with your next exercise. So you can actually see that it's getting marked, and and you do like this for all the weeks, and then all your information is getting saved.
Awesome.
And you
There's
can
a
go back
complete
and watch
button
your result.
here.
Yeah, so if you press complete, you completing the program or the training.
Cool.
So now you're getting back to day 1, and you are complete with day 1, and you can go all the way back if you want to and watch the results as well.
Okay.
And you can press go into that one as well.
So the data is used throughout the application, not just in a single screen to show graphs,
No.
to kind of show it differently, right?
Yeah, it's actually used everywhere, and it's nested from as we were walking through the application, from program to sub-program to the workout when you select the weeks, and then you come into the workout and you have sections with exercises, and when you press the exercise, you save the set and reps. So it's like 5-6 levels deep for the data.
Right.
And you can actually delete a program, you can delete a workout, and you can delete sets and reps. It's not actually in here right now, but you're going to be able to delete from anywhere.
Okay.
So it's a
can
lot of
delete here.
IDs to. Yeah, you can click the remove, and
It's going to remove all the week.
no,
right?
no. If you click it, you can see you can
okay.
just remove one by one. I want to swap this out to use differable data source to make it a little bit better and easier in the future. But for now, it's like this.
Okay.
Awesome. Did you come up with a UI and the UX by yourself, or someone helped you with that?
I did. No, I made everything myself, and I actually
one.
removed all the UI now, so
Okay.
to save a little bit for the release. So
Fantastic. Man, it looks pretty good. Yeah.
yeah, thanks. I'm
Okay, so you have problems with the nesting of the models, right?
yeah. I have. I'm a little bit worried that, because I've seen some bugs, already, that when I use the charts, this is a third-part library, the charts. In the future, I was thinking about using Swift UI's own chart, which is releasing now in iOS 16. But for now, I've seen that the deletion and it is starting to create some bugs a little bit here and there. And I mean, if we look on this in the save set controller, we can see it's a lot of saving and deletion of IDs going on. I have to look up for IDs everywhere, and it's becoming pretty complicated. And
Yes.
as I said, I tried to solve it, just thinking about the time. And now I was thinking about I need to start to bring it into modules because it's starting already to give me bugs. So
Okay. So the saving, all the logic is in the view controller. So
yeah,
using realm as storage, right?
yes,
And the view controllers talk directly to the realm models.
yeah,
And so this is the save set view controller, which here would be
all the way in.
all the way this one. Is it?
Yeah, that's
When you press
correct.
save here,
Yeah,
he runs this action here, right?
it runs the action which is coming a little bit further down, which is called save, handle save.
Okay. So realm manager.
And here the fun part starts because, as you see
Yeah,
here,
it's really complex.
I'm checking. Yeah, I'm checking a lot of stuff. To be honest, in the first part, I checking if realm exercise exists, because if the exercise exists, it's I just want to update with more sets inside of the exercise, because you can outside this controller, if when you press complete workout, uh, then you're getting an ID as well. So you're getting the ID either in when you complete workout, because you can save information after you complete as well. So you create you actually create an ID when you press complete, or if you come in here and press save for the first time.
Okay. There's also validation, right?
Yeah, I made some error handling.
Okay. So to save a set, you need to kind of fetch a bunch of entities, do a bunch of logic, multiply.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of, this is when you're multiplying and that stuff is just for the, because in the gym world, it's something called one rep max, which is just calculating, if you do 10 reps of 10 kilos, then if you would made one rep, how much would that be? So it's actually a calculation on the internet that's just telling you, okay, if you do one reps, you're going to do 13 kilos. So it's just what I save to the database in Realm.
Okay.
Right.
You see all the saving that's going on in if we open up the Realm, what do you call it, the display, or it's you actually
Manager?
have, no, you actually have, if you look in the console, in the data console there, you have actually in the top, Realm is located at, you see it in the bottom. You saw it in the bottom. If you go, you see you can open the terminal and open this file, and if you open It should open the window for the realm saving.
Yeah, but we don't need that, right?
No, I don't think
Let's
we do.
focus here on
Yeah,
the code,
yeah,
because okay, let's look at. There's a lot of things going on here. That's a huge file. We need to focus on a specific problem because we could be here for a long time. So you talk about the nesting of the models. You also want to at some point sync this with a backend. So
yeah,
you can ship it to the App Store and your clients can use that.
yeah.
So related to those features or problems you have, is there anything specific about this you want to look at first?
Yeah, maybe we can. Um, I think it's going to be to decouple this crude operation from. Maybe that's going to take some time because it's pretty complex.
Yeah,
We can talk in a higher level how to do it, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
Because they are all in the UI, and I would like to
yeah,
make some points about this because it's very common to see having logic like API logic in the UI, database logic in the UI,
yeah,
and that can be problematic. It may work for small applications, but
yeah.
it doesn't
You're
scale.
exactly, and you're at this point, in my opinion, that it's not going to work out very well, especially if you want a backend implementation as well. Sending data to
So
the
some
backend.
problems I see with this. UI is coupled with a DB schema. Change the schema. I want to, I don't know, have a table with some properties, but the UI doesn't need those properties. You make a change there, you may break the UI. You need to kind of fix a bunch of compilation errors everywhere. Every time you change something for the database, you break the UI. When you need something for the UI, you break the database, right? There's high coupling, so they are not independent. And maybe changing something in the schema of the UI still compiles, but now there is a bug. There's a silent bug in the application. So it's important to write tests, but it's harder to write tests when the UI is coupled with the DB because you cannot test them independently, right? To test the DB, you need to actually create a view controller, the database logic. You need to create a view controller and execute some UI action, like pressing the save button, and then checking the state of the DB afterwards. So it will be hard to test that as well. Also, if the logic is this database logic is in the view or a view controller, all the database actions like saving can only be triggered by the UI, like through pressing a button, for example. But maybe you want to run some periodic background operations for cleaning up the database or updating the DB or doing some performance optimizations, but or sync with a backend, right? And we may want to
yeah,
do it without actually pressing a button. Maybe you schedule every 15 minutes, automatically you sync with the backend. But if all the logic is in
yeah,
the UI, somehow you need to trigger it through the UI, right?
yeah, exactly.
Hard to trigger background DB operations.
And that's actually something I was thinking about in the future because with these sets and reps, it's going to be a lot of network traffic if I save every time I'm deleting or updating something. It's going to be a lot of network traffic, and I mean I'm doing this application just for my own sake, and I don't have that money for the networking backend. That's why I was thinking about, just update it a little bit now and then to just try to upload it to a backend and then just do it maybe one time every training session. So yeah,
Right. So network traffic. You want to reduce, right, the network traffic.
yeah,
So this is something we can add here as a goal. And syncing the backend. Okay, what other problems we can have if we couple the UI with the realm model is that the UI now may require a specific model, but the database may require the model to be different. Like the UI wants a value to be a string, but the database wants it to be integer, so it's easier to query, for example, right? And you start coupling this idea of presentation and persistence, and they not always match. Sometimes you need to make decisions in the database to make it more performant, to make it easier to query, and it's not going to be what the UI needs. And you always have these inconsistent models. There is like a one model trying to serve two different purposes: user interface and database. So trying to make one thing do two things is usually a huge, like one of the biggest points of complexity in software.
Yeah.
Right? In this case, trying to make a model serve both the database schema and the user interface. Because we can make very efficient database models and schemas, and we can make maybe a type-safe UI model representing what the UI needs. But trying to do both in a single model usually will create a mediocre solution to both. It will be not a great DB model and also not a great UI model because it's trying to do both, so you need to compromise all the time. You need to compromise less when you are creating independent models, one for the database, one for the UI. And that's usually why we have view models, right? The view models simply adapt that more complex model to exactly what the UI needs, right? It's like an adapter.
Yeah, exactly. And a view model, it's something I've been thinking about just bring into the project as well to try to decouple it with the view model.
Yeah, and then you can test the view model in isolation as well, right? The presentation logic.
Yeah. But it's usually when you save when you do a CRUD operation, it's just only with with this object. Usually it feels like it's a little bit easier because you can just do it with one object. But here you need to find it, it's a lot of logic going on with finding IDs and it's a lot of problem with the IDs, I think, with the program, subprogram, and
Usually you have these IDs because of the database, because you want to cross-check and do queries, right? The user interface doesn't need to know all IDs, for example, right? But we need to bring that into the user interface, even though it's like a database concern. So trying to separate these can be helpful. Also, the UI knows the provenance of the data. It knows it's the data coming from realm, from a database, which couples the UI with the provenance. You can only get data from that specific spot. So if you want to have some hard-coded workouts to show in the app, you need to instantiate a database, add a bunch of stuff in the database, hard-coded, and then trigger the UI. There's a lot of extra steps rather than just create some static structures and send to the UI, right? Because the UI knows the data is in the database and I'm going to access it from a realm database, you can only get the data from the realm database. So every time you need to pass data to the UI, you need to instantiate a realm database, populate it, and then load the UI. Make sense?
Does that make sense? Are you thinking how else can it be done?
Yeah, I mean, when you when you create your own program today, it's actually then I'm saving everything into Realm, and then I load it. But the programs I'm doing, that's actually from own structures in the application, if I say it like that. So
okay, so you don't need to add them to realm.
no, I don't add the things I'm programming.
Okay.
Or the programs I make, I make those as structs. But when you make your own programs, then you save it to Realm and get it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't know if you have this exact problem. I haven't seen yet the code base. I'm just saying that normal problems you have when you couple the UI and the database. One of them is that you may couple the UI with the provenance of the data. So you can only get data from that specific place,
Source.
source. So this is a problem you can have. Testing, right? As you said. It's
Yeah.
already here.
Because one second, Caio. Like, if that's the problem, where is it going to lead? It's going to lead to a bunch of if statements. Like if remote, if local, if realm, if hard coded data. And that's going to increase the complexity. It's going to make everything harder to test, to maintain, to develop.
And maybe tomorrow you find a framework that, hey, if I store in this framework, it automatically saves to the cloud, and I don't need to do anything else. But because your UI is coupled with Realm, it's going to be very hard to replace Realm with another framework, right? Because it's talking directly with a concrete framework, and that's it. To change it's going to be very, very hard. It's not impossible. It's going to be a lot of work.
Exactly.
So separating the UI from the provenance of the data can solve this problem. Because now you can change the source of the data without changing the UI, right? So it gives you more freedom to make choices about frameworks now and in the future, right? So this is important as well. Because I see that the UI many times talks directly with, so this is a view controller and it's directly talking to Realm.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to one day change Realm with something else, there'll be a lot of work. You're going to have to rewrite all those controllers and views.
I really went the easy way here with the Realm Manager. Everything is just coupled.
Yeah, because you could decide, you know what, I'm going to use CoreData, and CoreData already syncs with CloudKit. I'm going to create a CloudKit container, and that's it. The data will be synced for free there in the cloud, safe for my customers. I don't need to deal with authentication and keeping that data, protected. It's all in their device, in their CloudKit account, and that's it. In their iCloud, only they have access to the data, and that's it. So if you separate your UI from, you can make those choices more easily, right? You can say, you know what, I'm gonna use CoreData now because I get this syncing for free almost. Like it's not gonna be free. There's still some work to do, but but you're not stuck. Like you have options much more easily. You can swap one framework to the other, whatever is serving you. You started saying, you know what, I don't want to save this in the backend. I'm happy with it in the device. And usually that's how it happens, like even not just with your personal app, but in a company. You are in the company and they're like, no, we don't want a backend. No, we're happy with only local storage. And then you write an app, everything using a specific framework, storing everything in the device, and they come one day, you know what, we change our minds. Now we want a backend. But you said you didn't want it. Now it's going to be very hard. We need to rewrite the whole application, and then they're not going to be happy, right? Because we want the software to be as flexible as possible, and that's when making architectural decisions to separate as much as possible from a specific framework comes into play.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I need to do now. It's just decouple it.
Yes, because in the start it's fine, because it feels like it's perfect. I have one model and it serves already the persistence and the UI and everything, and it works. It feels like it's less work. It feels like it's easier to keep everything consistent, having only a single, model. And it starts well. It starts nice. It starts with for very small applications. It's you start the first week, second week, first month of building the project. Everything is super productive. It's awesome. You can get away with everything. I think in small apps, you can do any kind of decision. You'll be fine. But then you start adding more features, and then you put it in the app store, and you start getting reviews and people asking for more features. And the more features you add, the harder it gets, because it doesn't scale, right? So if you're planning on making very, very small app and never adding more features to it, fantastic. Just do whatever. Just use CoreData everywhere. Just use Realm everywhere. No problem. But if you want something that, over time, I want to add more features for me, for my clients, for whatever, my boss. So then you need to think about scalability. And coupling UI, database, and network doesn't scale.
No. And when you make your own projects as well, when you're an iOS developer, I think it's really good, because then it's like an educational app I'm building, and I think that's really good. I want to try out new stuff. That's why I'm doing this as well. So yeah, I'm going to decouple it, but and try some new stuff to learn. It takes time, but that was a little bit why I was asking you guys as well. It's like, okay, but if we decouple it now, or if we try to, how should we start? Where do we start with decoupling?
Right.
Yeah.
So the solution.
Yeah.
The solution is to decouple them, right? So decouple UI from databases and network. So let's draw some diagrams. For example, right now we have a view controller that talks directly to, realm.
Yeah.
It's a strong dependency. You cannot build this file without importing realm and so on. So it needs realm.
No.
Which means if you need to test this view controller, you need to instantiate a realm database, populate it, and then trigger some actions in the view controller and see what happened with the realm state.
Yeah.
So as we show in the program, how do you break this dependency? Dependency inversion principle.
Exactly. Mm.
You create an interface, an abstraction in between them. Realm, your realm manager will implement this interface. Your realm store, whatever you call it. Right? So you can define all the needs the UI have. Like, the UI needs this model specifically in this way. You will define all here in the abstraction. Now the realm store will decide the perfect models for realm is like this because it's more efficient, less querying, whatever. So there will be realm models on this side. And when the view controller asks, hey, give me all the workouts, realm store will query all the workouts, convert it to what the UI needs, to the models the UI needs, and pass it to the UI.
Yeah.
But the big difference here is like the UI doesn't even know about the realm store, right? Doesn't even know about the database. It's a very big change here, because the data can come from anywhere in the eyes of the UI.
We have a workout model here that the UI needs with only the properties the UI needs, exactly how the UI needs it. And you can have another realm workout model with exactly what realm needs, with primary keys, secondary keys, relationships, sets, and so on. But then you decouple the UI from this complexity. Otherwise, you end up with thousands of lines of code to deal with both. So this is usually the repository pattern, right? You have some kind of abstraction, a workout repository. It's an implementation of the dependency inversion principle here. You have a workout repository, and then you have a realm store that implements that and can retrieve repositories, workouts. Right?
Yeah.
But then the UI doesn't know about realm at all. Look how we inverted the arrow.
Yeah.
Instead of the controller talking directly with realm, you could talk to a repository abstraction instead. And you hide all the complexity about realm or CoreData, contexts and threading and all the complexity comes with it, like rows, cache rows, and faults, all of that. It becomes much simpler.
Yeah, even IDs perhaps, like maybe it doesn't need to know about all of those IDs, the UI.
So what you need to start creating is some abstractions, and you shouldn't leak any realm details into those abstractions, as we showed there in the program.
Yeah, exactly. Because as you said, Mike, if you have one ID, you can, with that ID, you look up another ID, and with that ID, you look up the other ID. So, I mean, it's actually coupled with IDs. So maybe I can just have it in the Realm store, but should all the logic go into the Realm store, or should I split it up to the Realm workout and have
It
some
depends.
more?
That's a very broad question. So it depends. Like, should all the logic be here? No, the logic related to querying realm should be here.
Yeah.
Right. The logic, for example, like, oh, we need to do some querying and checking some. Where is the querying here? Da, 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 da. Where do you do querying here?
It's if you continue downwards, then you have the delete function, and it's pretty massive as well. But it's yeah, here you have all the queries in the bottom. But so if you go to the bottom, you will find all the queries, I think, if I remember right.
Here.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
This is for the
Perfect.
local. Yeah, it's actually the realm. Okay, yeah, there we go. It's a lot of fetching from different sources going on.
Realm, model type. So why do you need to load all of that from realm in the view controller?
It's actually all of them has a task to do, and it's usually it's to check if the data exists from before, because it's if you I think if I remember right, it's checking. It's both checking if it has it from before, or if it doesn't exist at all.
Okay. Yeah, most of those logics can go in the repository.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the view controller will simply pass a data structure saying save this data that the user entered in the UI. And the repository will figure out how to create a realm instance, create a realm object, populate it, and store it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So we have something like this. You have a workout model that the UI will populate with the user will enter the screen, right? In the screen, the typing and everything. And here you have like a save workout. That's the interface.
That would be
let's
nice
say.
to yeah.
Now, all the complexity of querying or whatever you need to do to make this happen that is related to realm will be done here.
Yeah.
But the interface you interact with is very, very simple.
Yeah, that's the thing, because when you create that interface, you have the luxury of thinking only about the needs of the view controller. You don't care how it's implemented. Like, do I need IDs? Like, no. What does the UI need? I only need to load workouts, save workouts, and I don't know, maybe edit or something like that. So I just define that interface and that's it. And that way you protect your UI, in this case, the view controller, from all the details from the implementation, because CoreData will have some details and Realm will have other magic behind doors, and every other framework will do it differently. So you don't care about this, you're trying to abstract it away. And yeah, of course, if the store gets too complex, you can split it up into multiple pieces, but it's all behind this interface. So again, from the view controls point of view, there's no information about it. Everything is hidden through that abstraction or multiple abstractions.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Make
sorry.
sure to revisit a lecture called Dependency Anatomy of Dependency Inversion, where we go in very detail on these things, how they work and how
Yeah.
you can find the patterns, how to structure them.
Yeah.
And then, as you can see, like the view controller doesn't need to be concerned with the provenance of the data. It doesn't need to be concerned on how to deal with the schema. Maybe SQLite need to, interact with a C API, with a bunch of complex queries. No, it always interacts with the same interface, and all the implementations deal with the complexity of the framework. That's the idea. Define the interfaces the client needs, the client in this case, the view controller, and then implement it somewhere else. Separate the infrastructure from the client.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually exactly what I'm looking for, is just to have this one magic line, in the UI to save the workout and delete the workout. And then it should magically do whatever I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we showed this in detail in the program. All the steps are there. Like we're showing this more high-level view here because we cannot pass you all the knowledge in 1 hour here, right? So you're gonna have to go through the lectures, watch and rewatch some of them, because it's all explained
Yeah,
there
exactly.
in detail how to get exactly this. We show with CoreData, we show how to use the file system as a storage mechanism as well, codable. And other solutions to this problem. We also have mentoring sessions about it.
Yeah, how to sync remote and local as well, which makes it very, very easy to do.
Yeah.
Because now we can have a completely separate process here running outside the UI that does the syncing.
Yeah.
It talks to the cloud somehow. URL session, I don't know. And every time there's a response, it syncs the realm store, for example, right? So, and this is running in the background every 15 minutes, for example, right? It could be a scheduled process that every 15 minutes you run in your application. Doesn't require any user interaction. So the application is always in sync with the API, either sending data to the API or receiving data from the API. This can be run completely out of process, right? It doesn't require a UI action to happen. You can also have a button that forces that schedule to happen immediately. If the user say, no, sync now, right? You can have a button sync now that triggers this. But you can also schedule it. You have more freedom when you're going to sync. As you say, if it's a lot of data you're sending and you want to save, data, reduce the network traffic.
Yeah.
You can have a rule here. Oh, I synced like a minute ago. So schedule this the next time the user requests it. You can say, no, I'm going to schedule it for 10 minutes. I'm not going to do it right now.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Have this logic here.
Yeah.
Not in the view controller, but in this scheduler.
Yeah. It's that was one thought as well, because the realm properties is very special, and it's only working for realm. So we have to like convert it into arrays to UIKit models when we need to use it. And yeah, that was a little bit the thing as well. Like, okay, if I save it in the backend, I'm relying on the local storage, but then a little bit now and then I will send it up and then maybe receive it as well. Then I was thinking about, okay, how should I transform the models, in a good way as well? Should I just do it in a Realm store, like? Do I convert it into to JSON data and just use the code and then send it out to the view controller?
Yeah, I recommend separating this as well, because I mean, Realm provides solutions to sync with a backend already, right? With their backend. But
Yeah.
it's a paid
Yeah.
solution and can get very,
Yeah.
very expensive very quickly.
Yeah.
CoreData provides a way of syncing with CloudKit as well, and it's free.
Mm-hmm.
But historically, it has a lot of bugs. It's very hard to set up correctly and keep the data in sync. But if it's a simple use case, it can work pretty well. And maybe you want a custom one, but now you need to have this flexibility. Either I'm going to use CloudKit for now, but I also want a custom one. If I see my app is getting traction, it can be a paid feature. People that pay can use my backend, and then you start providing this session. But you need to have this flexibility now. We need to, if you want this app to grow, not just this app, but maybe it's just an example you're building on the weekend. But no, we're going to use the same principles when you're building something for a client in a large scale, right? Because we are growing as developers, and we're not going to be building small apps forever, right? We're going to be dealing with massive, large apps serving millions of users, and that's where the exciting projects are, right? So we need to learn how to deal with them and creating good separation of concerns to keep options open, especially in commercial projects, because for many reasons things are changing all the time. Maybe you're using Realm now and your boss have, I don't know, using CoreData, but your boss have a deal with Realm, and now Realm is a sponsor of your app, and you need to use Realm regardless if it's good or not. Like you have to use it. So you need to be ready to accommodate this kind of use cases.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way to do it: separation of concerns, following good design principles that we teach in the program, and learning the techniques, the patterns, and how to do it, right? So it's all there in the program. You need to watch the lectures.
Yeah.
That's the main idea. Create the interfaces your clients need without leaking implementation details of the infrastructure frameworks. Then you create implementations that deal with the complexity of the frameworks. And then you are free to do the app syncing, the scheduling completely out of process, in the background. You can use the background refresh. So when you open the app, the data is there already. So, it opens up a lot of possibilities. But if everything is done in the view controller, in the UI, that's going to be very hard to do.
Yeah, for sure.
And just to maintain over time, as you add more
Yeah.
features there, it's just going to be impossible. And
Exactly.
you see bugs, you're getting afraid to make changes because every time you change something, something else breaks. And that's kind of the death of that file. You lock it or something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be more feature. And I mean, I need to have flexibility. That's why I was like stopping the whole process now. It's like, okay, this is not going to work in the future because it's so the data is so nested, and it's so much saving going on, and yeah, I felt like, okay, if I continue with this, it's going to take me 2 months to add another feature in the future. So it was supposed to be a small project in the beginning, but now it's becoming a little bit bigger. So yeah, I have to redo some stuff for sure.
And write some tests as well to automate the process of validating the app. Especially when you have an application like this that, like let's say you are adding a feature in the save set view. You need to run your app. And let's say you want to save something in the set and you want to see that it shows in the result. You're going to have to run your app, press a bunch of buttons, create your set, type things, go back all the way and see, did the feature work? No, it didn't work. Okay, let me fiddle around a little bit, run the app again, and do it again. Oh, but now there's already data there, so I need to clean up the data. Let me reset the simulator. It's going to slow down, especially you don't have time, so you need to save time. How do you save time? Automating as much as possible. Automating the verification of your app, automating with your tests. not UI tests, because UI tests are slow, but unit tests, integration tests, acceptance tests. They will teach you the program. So you can be coding, you press Command U, in 0.1 seconds you get feedback. It's working, fantastic. Keep typing, Command U, feedback, feedback, feedback.
Yeah, I think I need to, because that's a good practice as well. I mean, the TDD is something that you teach a lot, and I know, doing your course and checking your mentoring session, I know that TDD is something I need to start to do, even if I don't do it in my professional career right now. It's something that I want to do, and I think all the guys watching this lecture want to do it, but it's hard to to start with it, because I never done it before, and just for some small tasks. But yeah, I think I need to just throw myself into the mud and start to doing it.
Yes. And then start applying at work. You can use this app as a playground where you don't have like crazy deadlines and stuff you need to deliver, right, to your clients.
Yeah.
And start practicing here. And when you get more confident, you get faster, you start applying at work.
Yeah.
Because I also started building apps. For a long time I didn't write tests, and I thought like, no, tests are going to slow me down. And only now that I have automation running on my favor, I understand how much time I was wasting, because it feels like it's going to take longer, but it doesn't. I can guarantee you that it doesn't take longer when you write tests. But it's something that with time you will figure it out. Automation will save you time. And think about tests as automation, not a test writing tests for the sake of writing tests. No, it's to be more efficient, to automate things. Let the machine do stuff, so we have more time to do more critical thinking.
Yeah.
Instead of doing with details of pressing buttons and stuff like that. It's going to save you a lot of time. But yes, it takes time to get good at it, and that's the problem.
Yeah,
it takes
yeah.
time to get good at it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, when I'm watching your lectures and everything, you do, it's everything that's being done is, it's really, really good, well explained, and I, but it's, for me, when I like, if I'm going to start to write tests now, it's like, yeah, I need to try to, I think I need to start to do it a little bit in an easier way and then grow from there, because it's so I can start somewhere and get into it, and
Do the
because or else
challenges in the program. It starts with an easy challenge, and it starts getting progressively harder and harder. But that's where you can start. Also, as you watch in the program, just don't watch the lectures. Get Xcode, open Xcode, and type with the lectures. Because until you actually type the test and you press Command U and the test fails, and then you improve the code and you make the test pass, until you follow that flow, you're not going to learn just by watching the lecture, right? It's always going to be something that's like, oh, I want to do one day, but I don't have time now. But if you actually do the steps, you write, even though like, okay, but I don't feel like I'm learning because I'm copy and paste. No, you're learning the mechanics of following the process. And that's very important. It's just like I can watch someone riding the bike on YouTube for like a 10 hours video, someone riding the bike. You go on the bike, you're gonna learn when you go on the bike, and you learn the mechanics of, balancing and pedaling. And the mechanics is important.
Exactly.
It's not a waste of time.
No.
So you need to take the leap of faith and start easy. That's perfect. You need to start easy. Don't get this project right now and say, I'm going to write tests for everything, because it's not going to happen, right? But go through the program, watch the lectures, and write the code, follow the mechanics. And then it's going to start becoming more natural. It's going to become easier. You're going to start creating shortcuts in your head of how to write the tests. And then when you have the mechanic in place, then you do the challenges. There's the first challenge there. There's the easiest one. And you get that done, writing the tests. Boom, you get code reviews, you're going to get approval. You go to the next lectures, keep following it. Next challenge, boom, you do the challenge on your own. This will help you with the mechanics and the process. When this process is very clear in your head, then you can start choosing parts of this application and say, okay, I'm going to test this exact part here. You will extract a subset of your application and test that part specifically. Something small. Start small and grow gradually.
Yeah, exactly.
And then start applying at work as well, because you become more efficient. You start automating stuff, like you're going to impress your boss. You may even get a promotion, a raise, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, that's something I knew from the beginning. That's why I joined your course. It's like TDD architecture, building in modules. That's something that I really want to learn. So it's, yeah, just start doing it.
As you said, like many developers, like they want to do these things, but it's hard and they don't. But this is also where opportunity lies, because these are the techniques, practices that the good teams and the big companies, like they need. It's not that they want, they need them in order to create big scale projects, right? So whoever they can actually perform them and master them, that's going to be of a great value to them. So perhaps that's an extra incentive there, for
Yeah.
developers. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's if I master that, I'm going to be, one of the hottest candidate in the market here in Gothenburg, I can tell you. So
Anywhere, not just Sweden, like anywhere in the world.
yeah.
Do what others are not doing. That's the secret.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Success.
exactly. Yeah. Don't follow the stream.
Yeah.
Mm.
Awesome. And follow the principles.
Yeah, I was saying that I see education as an investment. So just try to be smart about the hours you put in. So if you have some hours available, then I say investing in getting this knowledge first, as opposed to maybe working on the side project, which will probably keep like making stronger and stronger those old habits that already are pretty strong for you. So by repeating them over and over, it's getting harder to change them. So instead, I would just focus on, okay, how much time do I have? And if it's 30 minutes a day or an hour, and like just make the most out of it, like just try to get one thing at a time. And like, yeah, I know you mentioned TDD is great, is like a must for being in a big team and everything, but it doesn't come easy. Like you won't learn TDD in one day and then you can apply. There are some other smaller pieces that need to be put in place, like the solid principles and other things that allow you to test drive an implementation. Because if you try to apply something like testing to your project right now, you have a very hard time because all the things are coupled. Like you cannot write tests, so you're just gonna abandon it. That's why I'm saying, like, instead of maybe wasting 3 hours trying to write a test there, maybe spend those 3 hours getting some lectures in and practicing, and maybe just do one module, get it done, and then do it again and do it again until you feel like, okay, now I get it. That's how you build, and you're still at the beginning of the path you have. Like Mike said, you've done some impressive things. Now it's maybe the time to get some clarity, to get some like better ways of doing things, and it's probably the time to focus on education first, and then delivering or some other stuff, because you only have some, I don't know, some limited energy each day, so it depends on where you put it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I do it. So
that's the thing.
It's just a piece of advice. You know best. So
Yeah, I agree 100%. Instead of carrying on with this side project, I would focus all my available time on the program in the lectures first. And the app is working. It looks great. You can even put in the app store. You don't need a backend or anything, right now. Like, it's working. That's fine. Gather the education now, and then when you get better at that, then you can come back and start improving things. This can be your playground in the future, but not right now.
Yeah, that's a good advice, actually. It is.
And pace it well. I know it's like motivational things we're saying here. So you don't want
to
go there like 2 hours a day and just burn out in a week or so. Pace it well. Like 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day, just every day. And that's gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm trying to do. I have a lot of stuff in my work now, but I'm actually always planning with at least 1 hour each day with educational.
Fantastic.
And then I try to do the application for the rest of the time, the side project. But I mean, it's times in the life when you don't have so many hours to work on everything. So I think I need to skip the side project and just focus on education. I think that's a good advice. Advice for everyone. That's in my situation as well.
That's it. And regarding the technical part of this session, it's about separating that storage or that API from the user interface. That's going to make a life much easier. And how to do it, it's there in the program.
Yeah.
So you get everything by going through the lectures. The testing part, the architecture part, and the feature part.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to focus on that from now on. Yes.
And then you get all these new ideas about how to change your project, and just ask questions about it, and we can guide you. I'm sure I've seen this in many students. Like as soon as they learn something new, there's like the light bulbs just light in their head. It's like, okay, but I can do this and that, and like this will like decoupling. This decoupling will become so much easier to do. So
it's I'm actually really ready for take myself to a higher level. So
awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to dig in.
Nice.
That's it.
All right. And if you have more questions about it, I'm pretty sure you will as you go through the lectures. You can ask there on Slack.
Yeah, that's good. Have the Slack channel.
And of course, come back.
Come back to another session as well.
Yeah.
When you start implementing what we talked about today.
Yeah.
But first, finish the lectures, okay? And then
lecture first.
We have another session when you start applying those principles to this app. We can have another session, more concrete session where we actually type code, extract things. Okay?
That would be really nice.
Awesome.
All right. Fantastic. Good. Thanks. It's starting to get dark, and all my lights is off. Same in the electrical bill for the winter.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us.
So much, Joseph.
Bye.
Thank you so much, guys, for your help, and take care, and talk to you later.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Hello, everyone in the chat. Let's say better to make realm manager a singleton object, perhaps. It wouldn't help with the problem here. We don't have a problem of actually accessing these instances. It's very easy to access the realm instances. You can just instantiate one. So we don't have a problem with accessing an instance, so the singleton won't help here. We don't need to have only a single instance of it, so the singleton won't help here. What is the best realm of CoreData? I don't know, it depends on the use case, right? Like in which scenario? And that's is missing the question. What is the best realm or CoreData in scenario X? Then we can decide. But I personally try to go with CoreData because it's already in the framework there. It's already embedded framework in the platforms. It's already part of Apple, you know. The problem with Realm is that you need to add a dependency to your project, quite a large dependency, like 300 megabytes. I don't know. I find it too much for small applications, for simple things. Even for large things, like CoreData is pretty good.
That's the thing, because with CoreData, it's been here for many years, and it's probably gonna be here in the future as well. With Realm, there's no guarantee. Like the next day they discontinue the project, and then you're in a really tough spot. So
yeah, if Apple eventually deprecates CoreData, it's because they provided something else, and there will be a migration path as well. If Realms just disappeared, that's it. Like, good luck.
how many times does this happen, right? You marry a framework.
Yes. So they're talking about migration in CoreData can be difficult, right? Yes. But then it's a matter of just learning how to do it correctly, writing tests. We have mentoring sessions, how to do heavyweight migrations safely. You write a couple of tests and you have no problems. There's a session, how to do heavyweight migrations with tests in our channel. Or maybe it's only for students. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think the question here, and I don't have that much experience with Realm. I guess it's probably an issue there too. So I don't expect Realm to be super easy to do heavy migrations also. So it's
a custom thing. When you migrate data, usually you need to kind of change the type or change the structure. There's no framework that can do perfect migration for you. Right? It's always something that requires code, requires some customization. What do you think about UI tests? I think they are slow and fragile, and I avoid them as much as possible. What about you guys?
Agreed. I
Very
think
vocal.
you can only see that when you actually have them, so you have to work with them for a while. Otherwise, it's like people say like they're slow or everything. Until you see it, until you every day of a test fails and you go in and rerun it and everything's fine, and like you probably won't believe this. So
I'll expand a bit on your answer, Bogdan, and say it's not just seeing them, it's actually comparing, with unit tests, with integration tests, and seeing like, okay, this is insane here. It takes 1,000 more times to run, and that's.
Yeah, so if you have one UI test that does nothing, it simply runs the application, launches the application, and closes. The minimum it's going to take with the fastest MacBook you can buy is 2 seconds for one test that does nothing. A unit test that does nothing is like this, right? And a unit test that does too much is going to be this,
Yeah.
So if you think about like the difference, it doesn't scale well. The more UI tests you add, the slower things will be. So the incentive is not to add UI tests or try to test as many things as possible in one single test to avoid that delay. And then you start having very complex tests that are unreadable, that fail from time to time, and you don't know why. Just rerun it until it passes, And then you don't know if you actually have a bug that happens from time to time, or it's just the problem with the UI being unresponsive or having, I don't know, some delays that are making the test fail. And most tests, like 99% of the tests that people do with UI tests, I could write a unit test that we show already many times here, an equivalent testing exactly the same and taking like 100 times or 1,000 times faster, testing exactly the same thing without going through the UI. So you can say it's only 2 seconds, Caio. Yeah, but you would have like 300 tests, and then it starts adding up.
For me, I agree that's definitely an issue, and probably when you're doing TDD, that that's a blocker. If your test suite takes 3, 4, 5 minutes to run, then it gets slower. But for me, the worst thing about it is the flakiness. Like you randomly get tests that fail, and with UI tests especially, it's very hard to understand what failed, because there's no, like with unit tests, you usually have like a small unit which is exercised. In a UI test, it can be almost anything in the app because it's running the whole app, and good luck with that. Like you spend so many hours on debugging, rerunning. It's just a nightmare to maintain. For me, that's the biggest disadvantage. Like, yeah, totally the duration as well. But let's say I would take the, I don't know, 10, 100 times longer duration if it were reliable and easy to work with. Let's say, okay, it's acceptable, but they're not. So
yeah.
What I say about time, like I'm talking about a lot of time. Most companies, they hire me for consultancy or to solve any problems in their code base. The minimum their test suite takes, if they have UI tests, is like 2 hours, like their CI time is 2 hours. So they run it overnight. And if it's flaky, it's going to have some failing tests. And then they have to make a decision. Do we run it again, or you just check which test failed and say, okay, we are happy that this test failed and let's move on. 2 hours is a lot of time.
Yeah.
We want the test to run in, I don't know, a couple of minutes, never hours, as much as possible.
No, it really depends, because, for instance, if you have a bad strategy and you write too many tests, like with unit tests, you won't see the issue. What with UI tests, every other test is going to add to that number significantly. So it's probably, if you review some of these tests, you don't need all of them. It's a bigger conversation, I think. But yeah, I think I told you guys this story already, where, like, big projects I was working on, like you said, so many tests that take a lot of time, like UI tests, and because they fail, there's no way to rerun, because you always have to take some more hours. And the QA team build a automated tool that compare the last failing test on main with the failing test on the specific branch. So it's like insane, just to tell you if this failure is new or not.
Yeah. I just getting the problem under the carpet, boom, solved.
Exactly. So now you got to maintain that, and it's like, no, it's too hard.
You just say necessity is mother of innovation, something like that.
Yeah. No, but like this is such a common problem that actually now, since Xcode 12, I think Apple added an option to repeat failing tests in the test plan. You just say repeat these tests 10 times before failing. If it fails like 3 times or 5 times, whatever you define, because to deal with this problem.
Yeah.
It became embedded in the tools. So many people have these problems with UI tests that they had to add an option to repeat the tests in the tool. That's it. That's the solution. Next question. If I would split workout repository interface concrete type from the view controller, as we did, how would you do it? Define the interface the client needs. First of all, you're going to look at the view controller, see exactly what the view controller needs, and start extracting some interfaces without leaking implementation details. So you shouldn't have anything like, load all workouts in this managed context. No, that's a violation, because now we can only have a CoreData implementation in this abstraction. So it's not a good abstraction, because it's an abstraction already dictating the implementation. It's a concrete abstraction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ideally, you should hide any details about the framework is behind the implementation. Thus, you can have different implementations. And then you start extracting them. Okay, the view controller needs to have all the workouts. Okay, so I need to load all workouts. Does it need to save? No. Does it need to delete? No. So that's it. That's all the interface I need. No, I need to load all, and sometimes I save and sometimes I delete. Okay, let's define exactly what the view controller needs. extract into an interface, and that's it. Then you can test drive the implementation. And when the implementation is ready, you will compose them by passing through dependency, the injection patterns like construction injection.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.